All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to another episode of Brand Builder TV, where we want to share with you how to brand and market in 2020, not 2004. Big difference in the branding and marketing world. I'm excited for this next episode for this guest. I did a little bit of research, but I got referred him by another associate, and looks like he's a mover and shaker and making things happen. And he has a great haircut, man. So you got to love that. It's a brotherhood.
That's right.
So Coach Micheal Burt, let's give them a little 30,000-foot view, who you are, where you came from, and what's going on, and then we'll just chunk that down.
Sure. I live outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I spent from 19 to 31 as a women's basketball coach. And I did say 19. I was 19 years old. I was an assistant coach for 3 years and then became the youngest head coach in the state of Tennessee at the second largest high school. And what I really learned during that period was how to engineer people to win, how to build a competitive intelligence in people. And I was using a theory called the whole person theory, how to tap into the body, the mind, the heart, the spirit. And I was a deep disciple of Covey during that period of my life. And so I began winning so many games that people were constantly asking me, what are you doing with those kids? And I said, I don't have time to explain it. So that's really why I started writing books at 25 years old, was because people were asking me constantly what I was doing. And I just said, I don't have time to explain it because I'm trying to win championships. Just read the books. And little did I know when I started writing the books that companies would begin to call me and say, will you speak to and motivate our people? And so the next thing you know, one book turned into two, and two turned into three. And by 30 years old, I was speaking at large companies around the country while I was still a high school basketball coach. And at 31, I retired to do nothing but coach business people, entrepreneurs, sales people. And so for the last 12 years, we've coached thousands of people around the country and lots of businesses on really how to get an increase, right? Why everybody needs a coach in their life, a specific methodology of growth. It's not cotton candy or psych up, motivation, but real meat on the bone, man. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 12 years.
Love it. So was it a college team that you coached, or?
It was a high school team.
High school, okay.
It was second largest high school in Tennessee, about 2,500 students. But we built a national powerhouse that would go on to win 7 of 9 championships and become ranked nationally the number 1 team in the country.
So I'm sure the volunteers were looking at some of your girls, huh?
Yeah, Pat Summitt was a big, what she did for Tennessee. What she did for
legend.
Women's basketball in Tennessee was. I remember the first time I met Pat Summitt. By the way, I was teaching our camp, and Pat was really, really strong, just such a strong-minded person. Mm-hmm. And I got a letter from her one summer. I had this 6'2" player on my team, and I had this, and I got a letter from Pat Summitt that said, "Thank you for volunteering to work my summer camp." And the funny thing was, I didn't volunteer to work for summer camp. And at the bottom of it, it had P.S. Bring your best player with you. And so I called my buddies, and I'm like, man, Pat Summitt sent me this letter. It was handwritten. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, I didn't commit to doing this. And they like, you go do it, man. When Pat Summitt asks you to do something, you do it. So I went, and I remember when I met Pat Summitt and how intense she was. And just her, when you were around her, you just raised your level. Your frequency, we just went to a higher level because you wanted to play up versus play down.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that right there, that's branding 101, right? That never let them forget you. And I'm not a college basketball fan by any means, but I know who Pat Summitt is. Yeah. I know what she did from afar, but think about the impact, right? Think about the branding and the impact that made on someone like me. It's not even a fan, right? I mean, of the actual sport, right? Yeah. So, her intensity was second to none, man. What a beast. So Micheal, talk about how did you get into coaching? How did that even happen? How did it start?
Well, I got started in athletic coaching because another person, as I was growing up throughout my whole life, people were constantly telling me, son, one of these days you're going to be a great coach. My high school basketball coach called me professor as early as 6 years old. My little league baseball coach said, son, you're going to grow up to be a great coach. So I kind of had this mindset of helping other people, pushing other people, directing other people. So it was very natural when I became a coach as early as 15 years old. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. My philosophy is simple. Every person on planet Earth needs a great coach in their life. They need somebody who will have conversations with them they don't want to have, make them do things they don't want to do, take them to places they didn't know they wanted to go to. So that just evolved. I never planned on coaching adults. Like, my trajectory was build a national championship program, go to college, be the male version of Pat Summitt. That was my life, right? But when I got out and started coaching people, I realized the importance and value of business people needing a great coach in their life. And so I really fell in love with that, and which is why I started my coaching business, which has become a multi-million-dollar coaching business now. Speaking, coaching, training, leading, online academies, monster producer coaching program that's become a big brand for me. So, to me, it all goes back to that seminal concept of you need a good coach in your life, especially during this period of your life right now. This is the number one time you need a coach in your life. You need somebody working on your mindset right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's when we're in unprecedented times like this is when you really need the mentors that have been there and done it and help you get through those dark times. Because look, at the end of the day, this is unprecedented for everybody. I mean, who would have thought we'd find ourselves where we're at, right? So we have options as entrepreneurs, right? We can curl up in the fetal position and give up, or we can figure out how to go up, around, over, through. And that's what I believe makes separates the real entrepreneurs from the pretenders is circling their resources, right? Finding their resources. Let's talk about a little nuts and bolts, right? Of today's world that we find ourselves in, and branding versus 2020 versus 2004. Give us a little bit of insight on what you believe the power of branding actually is, and in today's world.
Well, I think when I think of branding, I think of association, right? And people associate me with being a championship women's basketball coach. That was my first real brand from 20 to 30. And then I wrote a book called Person of Interest. And Person of Interest is really about how you become the go-to person in your space. So I've chosen over the last few years to become known, my brand, as the number one activator of prey drive in the world, or the leading authority of activation of prey drive in people. Prey drive is instinctual ability to see something and go get it, right? I'm really the only person on the planet talking about it because it's prevalent in animals. Like a dog has a prey drive.
Yeah.
But nobody's drawn the correlation between this animal instinct and this prey drive in a person. So what I've spent the last few years doing is codifying that. What activates the prey drive in a person? How do you activate it? And then built my brand around that. This is the number one guy in the world at activation of prey drive. Now, who can that help? It can help the mom sitting at home who wants to go do something big. It helped my wife who did drugs every day from 21 to 24 years old. She had no purpose, no direction, no guidance. She came to one of my workshops at 30 years old. Her prey drive was activated. Wow. Right? It can be the real estate agent who's out there trying to sell it. Their prey drive can be activated. Companies hire me to activate the prey drive in their people. So I think, to me, branding is about associating your name and brand and image and logo with this. This is the number one person in the world at that. This is who you go to for this. So we tried to build that brand as America's coach, tap into my coaching background as being a real championship coach that knows how to activate this drive in people.
Now, speaking of the canine world, which has definitely been a big part of my world for a long time, do you find that the prey drive is different in different people, in different personalities, in what their conditioning was and still is today? I have to imagine it is.
Yeah, and you used a key word, conditioning. The condition, what we're seeing today in today's environment is people that were poorly conditioned early in life are really struggling today, right? I was conditioned by a single mom who had me when she was 16 years old. We don't whine, we don't complain, we don't make excuses. We get up, we show up, we grow up, we deliver. She wouldn't let me miss a day of school growing up. She conditioned me to be tough. She conditioned me to show up every day and fight through. And when we get in tight spots, we come out swinging. That's how I was conditioned, right? But sadly, most Americans were not conditioned that way. So to the point that you said earlier, when they get in tough spots, they immediately contract. They move they contract to a place of scarcity instead of coming out swinging, right? So when you ask which activators activate the prey drive, yes, fear of loss is a very strong activator of prey drive. Fear. can be one of the number one activators of prey drive in the world if used properly, right? Embarrassment is an activator of prey drive, meaning I'm personally embarrassed by my performance, where I could be doing. Exposure to bigger think is an activator of prey drive. Inspiration, being inspired by big time people is an activator of prey drive. Competition is an activator of prey drive. So when you understand, like I do from 20 years of coaching, it is not one thing that flips the switch for a person. It could be a combination of things, but there's typically a primary driver. Mine is actually fear of loss. I've worked very hard in my life to create the things that I've created, right? And the houses I live in, the jet I fly around the country on, and I wake up in the morning and that motivates me to go get it, man, because I don't want to lose those things. I don't want to go back to where I used to be. So I get up and I make more sales calls and I push harder. And when my back's against the wall, it really activates this competitive spirit in me to it's going to be a fight, but we're going to find a way to win. That's kind of my mindset every day.
I love that. And let's really also some nuts and bolts talk about the times we're living in as far as social media and our platforms. And I want you to talk, and we'll connect the brand with what I believe is the game changer from 2004. And I just use 2004 as an arbitrary date, but 2004 to 2020. And I believe, I have this on my book. It's your vulnerability becomes your credibility in today's world. And I think that that's so important, because one of we were talking about fears, right? I believe one of the biggest fears, if not the biggest fear in the human world, is the fear of what other people think, the fear of judgment, right? And I believe in today's world, in the last 15 years, 10 years especially, it's gave us an opportunity to not only allow people behind that black curtain, but when you don't, you're going to lose. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I like this concept of vulnerability, giving you credibility. For years, I've been a coach, so I've told people what to do, right? Like I didn't show any weakness. I didn't show, I was raised that way. And then I got media coaching, and I sit with my media coaches out of New York City. And I said, what will keep me from being an international thought leader? What's my kryptonite? And they said to me, your inability to be vulnerable. You won't share the bad. You won't tell about the right. And so at first I was hard-headed, as most coaches are. And so for a few years, I'm like, I'm not talking about that. I'm not becoming vulnerable. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to talk about my wife doing drugs for 3 years. I'm not going to talk about being raised by a single mother. And then it just switched, and I started to become really vulnerable. And I started to tell the whole story, and I started to tell the good days and the bad days. And trust me, it was one of the number one things that I could ever do, was just show people all facets of life. Show people when I woke up pissed off. Show people when I wasn't Mr. Positive. Show people when I had a bad day. And I became more vulnerable. And that started to connect to people at an emotional level, a deep, deep emotional level. And my career really took off when I began to become more vulnerable in my career. Now, social media, you can follow me around all day long. You can see what I'm doing. You can see me traveling around the world. You can see me coaching my team. You can see me coaching people. So I think today you get to really get to build an affinity with the person through social media. Like, I like this guy. I believe the same things this guy does. He can help me.
And let's even drive this home even deeper. And I'm going to ask you this question. We obviously, it exploded your business brand, your personal brand, your business to another level by creating that, sharing that vulnerability. But here's the real question. What did it do for you?
Yeah. Well, it made me understand that everybody is going through something every day. Everybody, the process is just as important as the product, right? Like it helped me to understand, when you wake up in the morning, everybody has a desire for increase in an area of their life. They may not know how to get it. They may not know where to go. A lot of times, to your point, when I'm coaching people or building out my coaching program, I ask, what do I need? What do I need? Man, I need encouragement. Well, I need a strategy. Well, I need a mindset. Well, I need a different person. Well, I need this. And I go, if I need it, I bet they need it too. And so a lot of the times there's this, internal, I guess when you're kind of taking stock and inventory of what's going on in your life, and to let people know it's not always perfect every day. We wake up every day with fears. Like I tell people, if you don't think I wake up with fear every day, then you've lost your mind. If you don't think the top 4 or 5 people that I coach every day don't wake up with fear, you're wrong. It's how they use that fear that really separates them from other people. They still wake up afraid.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, when I really became vulnerable over the last few years, for me, the best way for me to describe it is I became bulletproof, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's an empowerment that you can't get anywhere else once you lay it out on the table, right? And I realized, the other thing I realized too is speaking from stage. So my introduction is Dave Daly, the Monster Motivator, built and sold 3 companies in 3 different industries, and also crashed one to the ground. At 19, I'm sitting in a jail cell looking at 8 to 10 if things don't go my way. Here's what happens, Michael, and I know you know this better than anybody. When I get done and we do Q&A, the 2 major questions are, what businesses you crash to the ground, and why were you sitting in a jail cell at 19? People want to know that, right? And they want to connect to that. But what it does for you on the flip side is you become bulletproof.
Yeah.
Now everything's out on the table. Now what do you have to fear? Nothing. Right? Here it is. Here's my life. And you know, it's interesting too, and I'm sure you've found this when you share those struggles. I'll have people come up to me, CEOs of corporations, people that you never thought in a million years, and go, hey, can I talk to you a minute? My son is going through, or my nephew, or I really connect with that. It's just the times we're living in. I feel completely blessed. I can just tell you that, man, because that's my flavor, man. That's my flavor. So, let's talk about where we're at, man. Let's talk about this quarantine. Let's talk about, these businesses, these small businesses, Michael, that are need to figure this out, that are living check to check, right? That are or the employees that are living check to check. And I want to get your take on this, and then some things that you would suggest to not only survive but learn how to thrive, right, in this time. Because I'm a big believer of this. Chaos creates genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've been forced, all of us, including us. Look, mm-hmm. A good percentage of the people I coach are small business owners. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm a small business owner, right?
Yeah.
And so what I think has been good about this period, there's a term that I used when I was a basketball coach called a thunderbolt. And a thunderbolt was a sudden, unexpected jolt of energy. Mm-hmm. There are good thunderbolts and there are bad thunderbolts, right? And this thunderbolt has awakened us out of a complacency. It had gotten too easy. There was a false positive in our country. We've gotten too complacent. And so what happens is this thunderbolt comes along, completely unexpected, and it tests the immune system of our business. Now, I coach one of the top energy doctors in the world, a guy named Dr. Stephen Hotze in Houston, Texas, who's seen 41,000 people in his lifetime.
Wow.
And people go to him for energy. And so the very first person I wanted to have on one of my podcasts was him to talk about the virus. And the very first thing he started talking about is that from the day you're born, you are exposed to viruses. If you have a healthy immune system, then your immune system fights those viruses off, right? And he talked about what you have to do to have a healthy immune system. Well, as he was talking, I was drawing a correlation to a business. A business has an immune system. And if you have been working, if you have a world-class explanation of service, if you have a selling system to sell your product and service that is consistent every day, if you have a great 7-touch follow-up, if you know how to extract referrals, if you have a person of interest strategy, and you have been working those, then your business has a stronger immune system than a business that is not. And that's really what's happened to a lot of people, is they've gotten lazy and have not been working the sales cycle. They've not been following up. They've not been engaging with their customers. Now, all of a sudden, we're in trouble. Now we got to start all those things. We need to be making the calls. We need to be doing that. So what I think what's been exposed is, immune system of a business. Also, the ingenuity that you mentioned of the chaos. Mm-hmm. For me, I've opened new divisions of my company during this period. Monster Health, which helps people get on a path to health and wellness and get them to have the vitality and energy they need. We've opened up Monster Publishing for people who are at home that want to write their books, and our person writes the book for them. We've been creative in diversifying our business portfolio so we're not relied on one flow of income. Okay, if I didn't have online academies, if I couldn't do Zooms, if I didn't have books, if I didn't have all these things, and if all I relied on was my speaking business, then I'd be in trouble, right? Okay, then I have luxury, high-end luxury short-term real estate around the country. I've got an 8,000 square foot lodge in Tennessee that we rent and do trainings at. I've got a 9-bedroom house in Florida that we rent. We've had to refund $30 to $40 to $50,000 to people that were staying there. And if all I had was that, I'd be in trouble. So I've got to diversify my product suite. I've got to try to recession-proof what I've got. I've got to figure out how I can pivot. I think this has been a great thing to look at our businesses and go, okay, what is truly a recession-proof part of our business that we can continue to go no matter what happens in the world? That's an important part. I was actually signing bigger contracts during the 2008 recession than I did over the next couple of years. I was routinely signing 6-figure agreements to come into companies that were struggling to keep their people in a forward posture and try to help them make money. So it's a really interesting dynamic. When people were struggling, they needed a coach. We were signing bigger contracts during that first recession.
Love that, man. I love that. I have a similar story with the recession as well. And in the retail world, when everyone thought that, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? And we actually, I actually bought a struggling sports nutrition store in November 2008. And by 2012, it made sense to flip it, right? Because we quadrupled the numbers in the worst economy ever. But it's about, to me, man, it's so much about mindset. It's really about that mindset. And then tying in that mindset with the practical that makes sense and being able to maneuver. How important is it, Micheal, in these times? And I know you're going to say it's very important because it's pretty obvious, but you can go a little deeper on it, on learning how to maneuver now, though. Being able to maneuver, which could be one of the things that I'm a big MMA fan, right? I'm a big UFC guy, and I study the Fertitta brothers and Dana White and what they were able to do. And one of the things that really jumped out at me is Lorenzo said, one of the things that really made us be able to keep moving, even when when we're in a red 30, 40 million deep, is we kept it small enough to where we can maneuver quicker than some of the bigger corporations or the bigger brands. So speak to that, man. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're an MMA guy. My workout of choice is tap out. Many years ago, there was a strong workout. Yeah. That's actually what I do now with my trainer every day is a tap out. So when you think about it, I wrote a book called Zebras and Cheetahs many years ago. And the concept was a zebra looks different. This speaks to your branding. A zebra looks different than every other animal in the animal kingdom. When you see a zebra, it's clearly delineated. It's clearly different. A cheetah runs faster. A cheetah is agile. If you study cheetahs, they have a 60% close ratio. They're very mobile. They wake up in the morning and they're on attack. Well, businesses that are not are not agile, basically what they do is they can't move quickly. Now, it's harder for big businesses than it is for small businesses. I can walk in tomorrow and tell the president of my company, hey, I had an idea this weekend. This is another way for us to make money.
Yep.
Let's do it, right? And you go execute it. Here's the idea, you go execute it. It's easy for me to do in a small business. It's much harder to turn the big businesses. But I'm coaching lots of people in the insurance space. There's certain products right now that it is an incredible time to be selling their products. I mean, it is an incredible time, right? Like there's certain people who are really thriving during this cycle, but agility is a thought process. I come in every day and I look where the opportunity is. To me, money changes hands when problems are solved. Okay. So for me, pivoting to having a publishing division and we're generating revenue because here's why I did this, Dave, because 200 million Americans say they want to write a book in their life. That's 81% of the population, but they don't know how to start. I've written 16 books. So people constantly come to me, go, how do you do it? So I finally just partnered with the person and said, this person will handle your book start to finish. He's got a $5,000 option and a $15,000 option. And we get a percentage of that, right? For recommending, because I'm coaching all these business people that want to write a book. It was a pivot. It was a pivot, but it was a way for me to generate revenue during this cycle. If people were scared to make a coaching decision, if companies were scared to invest money in their people. So that's being agile. I see an opportunity and I go for it, man. It may or may not work, but I got the guts to go for it.
100%. I love that. And I want to be conscious of your time. So leave us with a golden nugget.
Yeah, I think when it comes to brand, I didn't understand this. From 20 to 30, I was building this brand, right? I was this intense and positive coach, but it wasn't intentional. It was unintentional. And then I started speaking and coaching. And one of my buddies that was a speaker named Joe Calloway, he wrote a book called Become a Category of One. Joe kept telling me, you got to pick a lane. You got to pick a lane. You got to pick a lane. And for years, I didn't listen to him, Dave. I just said, no, man, I can do this. I can be very versatile. And then I decided around 40 years old, no, I want to become the number one dude in the world at this. I spent my whole life preparing to have this primary skill to solve this problem for people. I want to be known as the world's leading authority on activation of prey driving people, and say nobody in the world is better at this or has been prepared for this than me. So I think it's very important for your viewers to really put a stake in the ground, to quit being all things to everybody and say, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. This is what I do. This is how I do it different. These are the people I do it for. And if I could do it for you, by George, let's get started. Like that's the nugget I want to leave.
Love that. And I tell you why I love that nugget so much is because it creates what I believe is the biggest empowerment. It's clarity.
Yeah.
When you can be, how powerful do you feel when you feel clear? Right.
That's right.
And your students, right? When they feel unclear, they're all, it's so disempowering. So I love that, man. Awesome gold nugget. Hey, listen, man, I want to thank you for taking the time, jumping on. It was awesome, man. I love it. I love the gold nuggets, and I love being able to share with our audience people that have been there, done it, and are currently doing it, and that's you. So looking forward to staying connected. Looking forward to following your journey, my man.
Well, thank you for having me. You got great energy. I appreciate you. Got great questions. So anytime, man. Thank you for having me, and God bless you.
Absolutely. Thank you.